Welcome back to Nowhere Nichols. What's happening? Alright, so my content's for educational purposes only. Can't stress enough you guys do your own research. Praise my content, throw in the errors you find in the comments. None of us have been alive long enough to know all that transpired in the past, and none of us can live long enough to know all there is to learn. Alright, let me adjust this joint real fast. Okay. Okay. Alrighty. Alright. Can everybody still hear me? I can hear myself, so let's get it. Alright, so the best thing somebody can do for you is to expose the hatred they have in their heart for you. It's funny how some people's best attempts at anonymity is an insult to your intelligence. People fail to they continue to underestimate the levels of some of our awarenesses. But, basically that was just something that was on my mind. Now that that's out the way, I want to talk to y'all about a specific subject matter that I personally been on for some time. It's floating around, the internet now. It's getting some attention. People are starting to realize its genuineness as far as that it actually is a thing, as opposed to, I don't know what they talking about. They crazy, they tripping. Even though that's still the perception from some. However, the task I've given myself today is to give you guys a brief overview of the process if you were curious, or if you happen to be one of us that want to take control of our commercial affairs and have a better platform and position from which to build our finances from. Okay, so pretty sure everybody's heard about the straw man, Straminius Homo, the ens legis, the corporate person, the corporate fiction. Yeah, it's a governmental creation, and it's basically a transmitting utility which allows the government to bypass your private status as a sovereign to gain access to the actual body. Another thing I need to start off to set the stage for this short presentation is the fact that people need to properly understand what the franchise of United States citizen actually means. It actually means that you are being held as a surety based on your human resource, meaning your labor. And you've also pledged your labor, your future labor, to assist in the Chapter 11 bankruptcy and reorganization that the United States Inc. Let me say that right. To the debt that the United States Inc. owes to the international bankers. So, this is why the presumption was made that you were a taxpayer, because they knew that the majority of us would not study, would not read, would not try to reach into the past to figure out how things have gotten to the way they are. Many of us know that government was created and erected to protect private rights. However, through the occult, translation through the hidden organizations and all the different schools of thought as it relates to occult knowledge that they've accumulated throughout the centuries. Unfortunately, a lot of our parents knew nothing of what I'm about to lay out for you guys. And it's, it's just real important, man. First of all, I need everybody to understand that the moment you retain a lawyer or the moment you ask for a public defender to represent you, you have excuse me, you have in effect actually gave the courts and the government the ability to label you a ward of the court and mentally incompetent that is in definite need of representation or representation. That's also relative to the straw man, or the all capital representation of your name. So the reason why this video holds importance for me is because, first of all, we weren't given the tools. They purposefully, willingly, and intentionally held this information from the masses in order for them to basically profit and to control circumstances as far as commerce and law is concerned. So if anybody watching this video is interested in taking control of their life, these are some of the fundamental steps that it would behoove one to take. First of all, I would recommend anybody that is interested in this subject of knowledge to seek out the Redemption Manual, written by R.V. Bay. They have several editions of the Redemption Manual out in circulation today. However, I would recommend that a person get the first edition. That, along with the books that I'm about to show you. Hold on. Okay. The Redemption Redemption Manual, along with Hardcore Redemption at Law, Commercial Freedom and Release by David E. Robinson. Okay, he has two other books that go in this set. They're all relative to the same process. Next, you have Commercial Law Applied, Learn to Play the Game by the same author. And lastly, you have Be the One to Execute Your Trust. All right, if a person were to seek out the Redemption Manual in this three-book set, that would effectively give you a solid foundation of knowledge through which you can put yourself in a position to take control of your life, your finances, and your status. Also, be equipped to begin the process of understanding commerce in some aspects of law. And I'll touch on law again later on in the video, but one additional book that is a must-have, well, I'll give you guys two. All right. The first one will be the Uniform Commercial Code. This is actually the rules that govern commerce globally. You're going to need that to understand things as it relates to the laws of commerce. Lastly, you're going to want to get a Black's Law Dictionary. I have the 3rd edition. I believe that the 4th edition is better than the 3rd. However, depending on how deep down the rabbit hole you want to go, you want to at least have a few different dictionaries. You have the Bouviers, you have the Ballantines, again, Black Laws, but they don't all have the same information in them. So you want to have a plethora of dictionaries, and you also want to get a finance and banking dictionary. All right. So, with that being stated, those are that would provide you a basic starter kit, and based on where I'm at now, I would definitely recommend that one seek out how to understand law. Everybody's not going to be as fortunate to be able to read and reread and gain the proper understanding of law based off of just reading alone. It's important to understand the principles at law because they lay out the proper application of law, how to do things properly, and certain guidelines associated. So, as far as the process is concerned, the first thing that I would recommend someone do is go to Vital Statistics, get a long form certificate of live birth. That is the actual birth certificate. That is the one that will have your doctor's name, your actual time of birth. It will have the hospital you were born in. It will have, either your mother or both parents' names on it, etc. It's more informative than the actual short form. Speaking of the short form is really associated with the birth of the corporate fiction. That is what makes you civiliter mortuus, dead in the eyes of the law. Another thing before I move on, it's very important that anybody desiring to take on this endeavor, it's very important that you learn the history. There are many videos that people have loaded to social media, YouTube, whatever. I myself even have a few on this channel. To name a few, you have the birth registration process. I actually did 2 on it because the phone that I used to record these videos cut off without my knowledge, so I did a second one. It's called a redo to understanding the birth registration process, and it's actually good to watch both videos if you choose to, because you get a different perspective on both videos. Another good one is understanding your status and standing at Law and Commerce. And lastly, History 101, parts 1 through 6. Once you understand or have researched independently the history of the United States and how you were actually enveloped into the status that majority of us now, have, then you can begin the process of undoing. It's almost like reverse engineering, so to speak. What they've done, you need to undo in order to gain access back to the Republic and common law and your status as a sovereign, a private person. That is without, meaning outside of the jurisdiction of the United States Incorporated. That will alleviate you from having to be subject, surety and subject, meaning actually you're their property, you're a slave, and you're bound to their statutes, codes, regulations, and licenses. You have no rights, you have privileges, and you will definitely part with the wages from your labor based on that status. So again, back to the long form certificate of live birth. The long form is the actual birth certificate of the sentient being. You need to go to Dover, Delaware, for all of my Delawareans, and get it authenticated on the state level, get the gold seal. Then you need to send well, you need to get the form 4194. That is a request for authentication from Washington, D.C. Department of State. You need to send that off with the additional manila folder, prepaid. It'll cost you total to send it to get authenticated at the federal level, roughly $50. Excuse me. While you're awaiting your document to return from the Department of State, that is when you should begin studying what a UCC-1 financing statement is, how to properly fill out and file your UCC-1 financing statement. And also, you want to learn exactly what goes into the collateral portion of the UCC-1 financing statement. What the UCC-1 actually is it's a lien. So the certificate of live birth, authenticated on the state and federal levels, will definitely be one of the main things you put in the collateral portion, because that will effectively give you superior lien position on the corporate person. It's about owning nothing but controlling everything. You cannot own it. You did not create it. It is a governmental creation, as again I stated earlier. Likewise with the social. If anybody watching this short video chooses to embark on this journey to freedom, again, under the common law, the only crime you can commit has to have a victim, has to have a person, not a corporate person, but a living, breathing, sentient being show in court and actually point a person out or an individual out, stating that he or she damaged him or her property or themselves. To give you guys a better understanding of what a corporate person is, the United States, the state of Delaware. How many individuals do you know that have done time or are actually now doing time, and the accuser or the injured party, the plaintiff, was the United States or the state of Delaware? Yeah, probably all of y'all. Now I'm gonna ask you a question. Is it possible for the United States or the state of Delaware to appear in court, talk for itself, much less point somebody out, or be cross-examined? Okay, neither can your corporate person. See, your corporate person is attached to you in paper form only, and in capital letters representing the name that you were given at birth. Unless you rebut the presumption, which this process will effectively do, and the presumption stands as law in commerce. Understand that all crimes are commercial. Like I've heard it before, from murder to spitting on the sidewalk. So, being as though all crimes are commercial, and the whole point behind going through this process is to not have to be worried with the public domain and entering into their courts with the gold fringes around the flag, you know, which ultimately stands for military jurisdiction rule. It is, you know, once you get to the private side, and trust me, these things you will learn with the books that I recommended. You will learn the difference between public and private. And if I could do anything to help you guys beyond what I've told you, is to study. Study and study some more. You need to learn about honor and dishonor. Anytime you're in their courts, if you're unfortunate enough to have to go to their courts, because a wise man stays in his own domain, if you are able to reach the private side, then you do not want to go in their courts unless you absolutely have to. And this is why the study and research is so important, because they are going to test your knowledge in real time with real consequences. This is why, you know, there are some that will charge you for information. None of us own information, you know, but it is every individual's sole responsibility to seek knowledge and seek the proper information. I wouldn't expect anybody to do any of this for me, neither should you. You know, the information that I've provided thus far in this video is just for structural information, you know. And if a person watching this video decides to, seek out these documents, by the time you've read, you know, these, you know, the Redemption Manual and the 3 books that I recommended, and have acquired or procured a legal dictionary or 2 or 3, you will by that time have come across other aspects of this process. You know, like, for instance, House Joint Resolution 192, public law. I forget the numbers associated with it, but it was passed on June 5th, 1933. And that was actually when they took us off the gold standard and abrogated the gold clause. And that was also after the advent of the Federal Reserve Act. These things you need to look up. Federal Reserve Act, the Banking Banking Act of 1933. There are a few other banking acts. You need to also look up the Trading with the Enemy Act. You need to look up everything relative to how things were set in place. You know, House Joint Resolutions, different acts. And trust me, you'll come across these things if you're diligent in your studies. But based on House Joint Resolution 192, all past and present, all past and future debts are prepaid. There is a private administrative process you need to learn. It's called acceptance for value, whereby one can discharge any debt. Cannot make purchases, but once you have a debt, it can be discharged. It's in law. Take nothing I say for face value. Please do your own research. And with that being stated, that's pretty much it, man. That will give you, I've just given you a solid platform from which to build off. That way you also need, I'm sorry, before I go any further, you guys actually definitely need to learn about trusts. You need to learn about trust law. Just like they have the Uniform Commercial Code, they have the Uniform Trust Code. You need to learn these things because a lot of the words that you may see in a Webster's dictionary have a completely and totally different meaning in law. They have a completely and totally different meaning in commerce. They have a completely and totally different meaning in banking. And if you want to reach the age of majority, which is the opposite of a minority, and a minority has nothing to do with whether you're melanated, carbonated, or your ethnicity. It has everything to do with your state of mind. See, they knew because they utilize think tanks and they think in yearly intervals that used to be decades long. They used to plan in 20, 30-year intervals, but now they've surpassed that. And this is why I do things like what I just did with this video, because we're already behind the 8 ball. We're really doing on a collective level nothing significant to approach where we need to be, as opposed to where they have us. And to be perfectly honest with y'all, I mean, initially when I came into this information, I was pissed off about it. I was caught up into that, the European this, the European that. Let's get it straight. True indeed, we have, our ancestors have, and we still are today, have been subjugated to some of the most harsh and unspeakable treatment that you could imagine. However, just like in childhood, and I've said this on previous videos, you are not responsible for what you suffered through as a child. The trauma that is visited upon you during your childhood is not your fault. That is definitely no longer an excuse when you attain adulthood. It's your responsibility to heal through any traumas that you've been subjugated to. I also talk about those issues on this channel as well. But again, it is absolutely, positively, and individually your duty, your obligation to yourself to put that emotional baggage down. Learn the process of healing, whatever works for you. Learn about your chakras, how to balance out your energy. And for those that think that's a joke, just look up HemiSync, HEMI-SYNC. It is basically a governmental program that they spent millions on, and it basically deals with balancing out the left and right hemispheres of the brain to achieve higher levels of consciousness, telekinesis, psychic abilities, etc. Truth is actually stranger than fiction. They put all the truth in cartoons, in movies, and in comic books, as ironic as it may sound. I do what I do because we need to know. Who am I to say that, oh, well, they ain't gonna do nothing with the information? No way, fuck them. Nah, I mean, that may be some people's position, but it's not mine. You know, I never underestimate the power of planting a seed, regardless of what anybody's, perception or opinion is. I've had even one person tell me, "Don't waste your water, trying to nurture seeds so they can grow." I mean, I understood where he was coming from, and there is a time and place for that, but no flame loses its light by lighting another. So, and some people actually may be like I was. I was 14 years old. Out on my own. Me and my mother were both Geminis. We clashed. And I ended up leaving the house at 14 years old. And after doing all the shit that I wanted to do but couldn't do at her house, got old, got common. I got used to it. Selling drugs, the drinking, the having the sexual addiction, you know what I mean? It got to a point, man, where I felt empty. None of that shit was what it was cracked up to be when I couldn't do it and was yearning to do it. And that all stemmed from, things that I lacked from my father. So all of the cats that was running the streets, all the different titles you got. Mind you, I'm a 70s baby, so it was real back then. A lot realer than it is today. So, those are the guys that I admired. Those are the guys that I looked up to. And those are the guys that I mimicked. So, it may sound like it's a little off topic, this video, how the trajectory of it went, but it's all relative. Because, what do you, when it comes to a person coming to the realization or it being pointed out to an individual that they need to heal, what are you ultimately healing from? 9 times out of 10 is childhood wounds and scars and trauma. Because that's 9 times out of 10, not always, but 9 times out of 10, that's when you begun erecting defense mechanisms in order to protect yourself, your emotions, or your heart. And the trauma that you went through changed you. So the goal is to get back to a state of purity. And if you're carrying around emotional trauma and baggage, and you're acting from a position of those different layers in the form of defense mechanisms that you've shrouded yourself with, then are you being your authentic self, acting from that capacity? Nah. All that, well, this is just the way I am, is bullshit. It's a crutch. It's a cop-out. Because, first of all, it's not matching up with who you were before the world began, hurting you. And I'm saying the world by anything and anybody in it. Whatever it was that you went through. We all went through stuff. And in order for you to get back to the state of purity of which you were born, you have to peel off those layers. You got to peel those layers off, because those layers represent the defense mechanisms and the layers of enshroudment that at one point or another, all of us have applied to ourselves in order to protect self. So again, it's all relevant, and keep in mind, it's mind, body, and soul. So you're dealing with spiritual, you're dealing with physical, and you're dealing with emotional and psychological. So, you know, with that being stated, man, it's as is always, it's been my hope, and it is my hope that something that I've said either resonates or can provide some form of substance or value to someone's life. Again, in closing, anybody that seeks to endeavor upon the legal aspect of this video, please understand that it is not a joke. You know, the law is not a game. The maxim that you will run across is that ignorance of the law is no excuse nor a defense. That is there because they expect you all to know the law, although they don't teach it. And the last thing I'm gonna leave y'all with before signing off is, if nothing else, eradicate this old saying that we were told. What you don't know won't hurt you. That's a bald-faced lie. It's been hurting us, it is hurting us, and it will always continue to hurt us. You know your history. Learn your foremothers and forefathers' customs and ways, their history. Because only then can you truly know self. That is a rite of passage to knowing self. Genetically, everyone in your bloodline that has ever existed lives within you. I say that because I know a lot of us know everybody else's culture, but we don't know our own. That's a smack in the face to everybody that lived before you and suffered a horrendous death. And they did it in honor as a sacrifice to make sure that the generations that they left continue to live. There's so much, man, but I'm not gonna browbeat y'all. Let y'all go ahead. Y'all be easy, stay safe and dangerous whenever necessary.